Okay. Assalamu alaikum. A very good evening to everyone. Welcome. My name is Dr. Nasser Ali, and on behalf of YPS Young Professional Society and our collaborators, STEM Matters, I'd like to welcome you to one of our webinars, which we've been holding quite frequently on a weekly basis. And this is where we invite senior professionals who come in and they speak about their area of expertise, and they tell their story, and also they advise youngsters how to become successful. And today we are delighted to have with us a very important, a very famous and international personality, Saeeda Ahmed, who will be speaking on from local struggles to international leadership. And I will, and before we actually move forward, I would just like to mention that our panel is consists of Dr. Amir Hanan and also Professor Waqar Ahmed. So it's myself, Professor Waqar Ahmed, and Dr. Amir Hanan, who will be chairing the session, and he'll be introducing our speaker and conducting the Q&A. So the format of today's webinar is that Saeeda will be speaking for, maybe 30, 40 minutes or so, and maybe last 15 to 20 minutes, you will all have an opportunity to ask any question. So if you've got any questions, I suggest that you write them, type them in the chat box, and at the end, hopefully all your questions will be answered. And those people who are joining us now on live streaming Facebook, if you've got any questions, please do in the comment box, ask your question, we'll check them, and at the end, your questions will be answered. So we are live streaming on Facebook, and after this we are recording as well, and we do have our YouTube channel, so we will be uploading this webinar, the recording on the YouTube channel. And before I actually move forward, I would just like to show, sorry, this was quite missing. So local struggles to international leadership, our partners STEM Matters. Before we go on, Young Professional Society was set up to help young people with personal and professional development. And we do this by working on the 3 pillars. And them 3 pillars are: 1, communication. So we're trying to help youngsters improve their soft skills, which are very, very important. Also to develop leadership skills. And this is where these webinars come into play, where a lot of the leading people, authorities are coming in, and youngsters are interacting and learning from these people. And also the 3rd pillar is the innovation one. And if you want to know more about the Young Professional Society, or you want to become part of this, then obviously, you could go on to our website, www.ypsociety.uk. And we're also very active on social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube, and Twitter, and WhatsApp. And so these, you can find out more on them. And our collaborators, STEM Matters, who are based in Texas, Dallas, are our collaborators, and hopefully we are also live streaming on their Facebook page as well, and you could see their website they're on YouTube as well. So hopefully we'll have people from the United States who are joining us as well. So if you are from the States, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So without further ado, now I am going to pass over to Amir Hanan to introduce our speaker, and we can continue with, and I look forward to listening to Saeeda. So over to you, Amir.
So thank you very much, Dr. Nasser Ali, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you very much to the Young Professional Society for inviting me to chair this meeting today. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce you to an absolutely amazing personality, someone who's been incredibly inspirational to myself as well as to many other people. And hopefully we're going to learn a lot about her today. Just to give you a bit of an introduction of who she is, she's a thought leader and a socioeconomic entrepreneur spanning over 20 years of solution-driven projects which benefit the economy, society, and industry. What drives her passion is lasting sustainable change for society and the economy. She's been appointed as a specialist advisor to the president of the state of Puntland in Somalia to develop and grow the education sector there, the healthcare sector, environment, and the livestock sector, as well as commerce and youth. She's already developed a strategy that is transformational for that area. She's also currently the UNGSAI ambassador and advisor for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals globally, including the development of 25 sustainable cities globally to act as a lighthouse for models of excellence. She's brought on board global big players for renewables and people development, including waste to energy and investors for investment worth considerable amounts. She's spoken this year in Davos 2020 about sustainable cities, the Organization of Islamic Countries' opportunities, and connecting with the Istanbul Declaration. She's in principle agreed the funding and development of a sustainable city in the heart of an Organization of Islamic Countries country. She's involved on a global level on the development and growth of the halal economy from a ethical and socially responsible model perspective. In the past, she was on the National Advisory Group member for measuring social value. And currently, she's established and is the founding director of the Education Partnerships UK Limited, which provides holistic education and business solutions to national and international clients. She's creating opportunities between education providers and industry and with international business and education counterparts. That is only just a very, very small idea of all the very many things she's doing. So I've got a great pleasure in introducing Saeeda to you today to find out a little bit more about who she is, what she's about, what makes her tick, how she's achieved what she's achieved, and maybe some little trinkets of information and knowledge that the audience today will learn from. So Saeeda, thank you very much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Amir Hanan. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very good. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for coming today. I thought we'd start by just asking you some simple questions to start to help us to understand how you've achieved all these things. So do you want to just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your early life and where you grew up, your family, your surroundings and things?
I was actually born in Pakistan. So I was born in Pakistan. I came to the UK when I was 8 months old. And my mother and father, my story isn't that dissimilar to most of the young people that are from a South Asian background. My father was actually working in the mills in Bradford, and I didn't actually have a privileged lifestyle. I grew up in a poor area of Bradford. It was most of the children in that area, you'd go to school, but the teachers just thought, well, actually, these children, especially the girls, they're not necessarily going to have an education further than the age of 15 or 16, so why should we bother with them? And so there were some teachers that really were passionate and felt the struggle of a lot of the poor children in Manningham. But then there was others who were resigned to the fact that why should we bother if they can't be bothered? And my father, he's a Hafiz Quran, and I'm actually of a Pashtun background, so I'm Pakistani Pashtun and very proud of it. But what it meant was that there was a backdrop of economic deprivation. There was also an education system that hadn't fully engaged South Asian communities. And then you had all the extra cultural issues that we may have. And I grew up as one of the elders in the children at that time. So from that, the learning pretty much was that the services were being delivered at us as communities rather than with us. And they'd say, oh, well, we've developed this fantastic initiative to get children to be getting a better education or their parents to have better prospects. But they were based on stereotypes rather than actual reality for us. And I think that my life from the early years was that thing of where the actual needs I had were never fully met, educationally, locally, socially. So on the basis of that, often in my head I used to think, wouldn't it be great if we could solve this problem by doing it this way, because then I could actually have an education, or I could do certain things. And I came into my life from my childhood solving problems. And as a Pashtun, I never really fitted in, because I didn't fit in with the white community, because I was like this awkward child and that didn't have a cultural fit. And then I didn't fit in with the mainstream Pakistani or Indian or Bangladeshi community either. So I was this I was really tall for my age. So I was just this overgrown child who was about 5'5" at the age of 10. And the children all my age used to come up to my waist and used to keep calling me Miss. And I wasn't Miss, I was just like another, just like them. So this backdrop meant I was this awkward person in the middle of a lot
Can we mute
Can I
the
just
mic,
ask
please?
everyone to mute the
of. So can you hear me? Okay. So in this awkwardness, I spent my whole life not fitting in, and I hated it. If I could have ever been invisible, it was my dream. Someone who could just hide in the background and nobody'd notice me. But all through my life, I always got noticed, and it irritated me. I hated it. And I used to, it was such a big problem for me, because I just wanted to be that person who couldn't, who could kind of like, nobody could see. I wouldn't upset the apple cart. When everybody else was quiet, I'd be quiet too. And instead, I always had a voice when everybody else was quiet. I could always see things that that I don't know why either other people didn't say.
So just on that, oftentimes in our communities, the men are the ones who are put forwards, and the women tend to be in the background, like you say, and just expected to just get on and do things. But clearly, you broke away from that, and so what do you think the role of women in general in societies, not just Muslim women, but across the board? How do you feel about the role of a woman in today's society?
Well, I think that there's, first of all, not to tolerate people of other faiths, but actually to respect them and care for them. That they're our friends, they're our families. You look out for people. Then at the same time, I look at my mother, and my mother's really passionate. She's courageous. She gave me a sense of fearlessness. And I did not know how rare that was when I was growing up, until I started growing up and seeing the real world and seeing what's happening to so many people out there. So between the wisdom of my father and I suppose the balanced energy, I had my mother, who is passionate, who's courageous, who's feisty, and in the middle is me. And as the eldest child, I was working against a backdrop of that. And so for me, the cultural restraints of what a Muslim woman or a woman in society would be actually came from what schools taught me, and the books on home economics. I wasn't allowed to do woodwork. I was told to go into home economics, and I made the most lopsided cakes ever. I really just wanted to make those wooden cabinets. And so, it was those types of things that over a period of time, you start getting conditioned, either culturally within an education system or within your own home, on what you should and shouldn't do. And so the role for women actually is to change the world, just like the role for men is to change the world. It doesn't come with a precondition of your gender, your identity. It comes with a precondition of having the will and the courage to go and do what needs to be done. It's rolling your sleeves up and doing it. And then I missed most of my school over the years. I missed it because at that time it wasn't common for girls to have a formal education, and in my family I was one of the first, so I missed a lot. I ended up joining my school when I was about 14 or 15. I had actually hardly done any of my education, And when I joined, I was the outsider because I didn't have the basic foundations and building blocks that most of the children had in terms of things like English, grammar, sentence structure, and so forth. So over those years, I was this person who didn't fit in and was just like in a space of unawareness of what is the cultural norms. But I did not realize that with time that would become my salvation, because if you are not conditioned and you are not following the rules that everybody else is following, you also have the chance to pave your own way and do things unconventionally. And I think that when you look at, for example, what we're facing in the world today with COVID-19, you actually see that the world needs unconventional leaders, because the conventional have done as much as they can do. But now we're facing a global pandemic that nobody actually has clear solutions for. So this is the place where the people who haven't shone before, the people who haven't been seen for their skills, can really make their mark. Yeah.
So during your education, you went to University of Huddersfield and did an accounting degree.
Yep.
And then you went off to do a master's degree in community enterprise at the University of Cambridge. And your dissertation there was on women's leadership in the social enterprise sector. Do you want
Yep.
to tell us a little bit about what that was about? Because clearly you decided to go away and do some research around this area. So yeah, do you want to just give me a little bit about that and what you found about that?
I used to actually look at, again, basing it. I mean, I don't think anybody who actually has gone through life would say that their childhood doesn't help form what they think about as an adult, or how they navigate the world. And I was very ethically driven. I wanted to make a difference and so forth. And then I noticed a lot more women were interested in enterprise or initiatives which were about linking this, serving the world and its people. And there was research at that time from Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, which said much more women went into the social enterprise sector, both as entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and leaders. And I wanted to know whether this was by design or whether there was specific reasons behind it. And again, one of the things that happened, and it's been consistent, is that as a woman, so many cultural stereotypes attached to Asian women. So you know, the people keep thinking that they can make choices for us and they can make decisions for us. So I used to go through school, and even at school, when I used to be in front of the careers advisor, you'd say, I want to do this, and they say, no, well, you can't do this. I think you'd be better off doing this subject. And it was the same when I wanted to do, for example, woodwork, and I was told, no, you have to go into home economics. So when you've got that type of backdrop, your whole life becomes like a pantomime, in the sense that they say, oh yes, you must do this, and you say, oh no, I can't do that, I'm going to do it this way. So South Asian women, because that's what you are. And I said, no, I actually want to do it on women. And it was this thing that, you know, as a woman, you have to fit into a subgroup that others see you as, rather than what you are in yourself and what you believe you want to check. So there's this, I have a very expansive, I see what's going on in the world, I reflect, I read, I spend time thinking about solutions. But at the same time, I think that for much of what I've experienced, it's been reductionist, that if you are a young person, you cannot think about issues that might affect older people. If you're a woman, you can't think about some of the struggles that men may face, or vice versa. So really, the social enterprise sector and the research findings from that were fascinating, that so many women were going into social entrepreneurship because there was not many places that provided a platform for women to be able to be ethical and businesslike at the same time. But just bringing back on a point, Amir, one of the things that happened was when I'd seen this advert, this was there was a scholarship running for this social enterprise or this community enterprise master's degree. I looked at it and I remember, and it reminded me of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You know, when they kind of like look at that ticket and you think, oh, I wish I could be. And I said to my mum and dad at that time, I said, oh, to do, but I'm not going to do that. And my dad looked at me quite surprised. And he said, why won't you do it? And I said, well, Dad, you know, Cambridge University is so elitist and it's so kicked in and said, no, you've got to do your research now. So what I did was I Googled every single person that they mentioned in the course brochure. I found their names, I found their details. And, you know, I had to become really bolshy. I rang them up and I felt so ashamed about it. I thought, oh my gosh, you know, they're going to think she's such a weirdo. Anyway, I ended up ringing up the people on the course and I said, look, I really want to do this course. Can you give me any inside tips about what the course is about? Can you give me any ideas about the interview? Now, unbeknownst to me, the week after they'd all got together and they'd said, oh, this woman from Bradford got in touch with us and she's asking us about the course. She's really excited. And the other person said, oh, she rang me as well. And she rang me. So eventually everybody knew that this is a woman who went out of her way to get some of the background knowledge in order to join this course. And when I joined, but it was like a miracle for me. Life in Cambridge was so different from the northern England, Bradford, Halifax, the work I was doing. My work was gritty, it was real, it had poverty of people that I was working with, you know, poverty of aspirations. And there I was in the sea of so many powerful people, of meeting people that I'd never met before. And from my life, it was like these two different worlds that I was participating in. And you know, if I'm honest, I really I struggled on the academic side because I didn't have some of the academic background that others were lucky enough to have. So I had to do extra research to cover the foundations I missed in my childhood, some of the things I'd missed over the years. And also, you know, when your story of a lot of the people around you, they've had bad experiences and some of those are your friends, that negativity rubs off on you. So people are saying, oh, that happened to me and that. And you think, actually, yeah, that's my lot. That, you know, I'm supposed to struggle because that's what we're supposed to do. And with time, I realized we're not obliged to take on the negativity that others have experienced. We can learn from it. We can try to see how we can incorporate learning from it and the knowledge from it. But it doesn't mean that we have to embrace it.
Right. So what are your values?
Okay, my values are about impact. It's about having the courage to do the right things and make a change. I want to make sustainable cities. I want to be a person who has helped inspire and enable positive change on the environmental issues, on social issues. I want to eradicate poverty at root cause. I believe we have the ability to be able to do this. I believe in inclusion. I believe in creating change that is sustainable and positive for everybody. I want to eradicate hatred. I want to eradicate negativity, destroy people, communities, families. And I really believe that COVID-19 is giving us a context to meet people who can truly make change and can implement those values. As a Muslim, I'm proud of being a Muslim and I'm proud of being friends with people who are not Muslim. I'm proud of what they add to my life and I add to theirs. And I've got phenomenal people and friends with skills, with competencies, with strengths that I actually learn from and they learn from me in terms of some of the networks and the connections I have. So for me, it's about building a world that all of us can be proud of, all of us can benefit. And I have a core belief that somebody else does not need to go hungry or suffer for me to be able to have a good meal on my plate.
So at this very moment in time, Boris Johnson is addressing the nation. And there's talk about the whole of England, at least, going into a full-on lockdown. And goodness knows what that's going to mean, but it might well mean that restaurants, um, hotels, much of the hospitality sector may well shut down for a whole month. Large economies have been really affected. And you mentioned about the impact that COVID-19 has had, and that's having a real impact on real people right now as we speak. But you've talked about the fact that you believe in a sustainable economy. How? How do we get an sustainable economy? What ideas do you have around what we, the people on the planet, should be doing?
One of the first things we need to think about and reflect on is that economies might be getting battering, but people all over the world in poverty situations, in difficulty, have been suffering for decades, if not hundreds of years. So what the economies are facing is actually the story of so many people all over the world. Actually, COVID-19 is giving a real opportunity to people to transform their lives, to redirect their energy, to start following up passions and develop skills that they've never had a chance to do so before. So it's a matter of perspective. Is the glass half full, or is it half empty, or is it full, half with water, half with air? I'm a believer that at this moment in time, we are at a pivot in our lives and in the lifetime and of the future. We have the ability to transform the narrative of where we want to go. And it needs to start from us changing how we think about ourselves and our role in the world. I have stopped watching television. I have stopped watching a lot of what we're being spoon-fed through reality TV and so forth. I do not want to be a reductionist in my life. I want to be somebody who goes out there and tries and makes things happen. And every single one of us have got phenomenal skills, capabilities, and abilities that maybe were not suited for our current workplaces, but we just never ever needed to do anything differently because we were in this hamster wheel. We got our salary, it came in, we did our job, we dropped the kids off to schools, or whatever it was, whatever that routine was, we didn't have a stopping to the system. At this moment in time, a stopping is occurring, and that stopping creates new opportunities. Whilst people are feeling so down, upset, there's people out there who are planning how to take opportunities to profit from this, from everything from, we didn't have masks with sequins on. How come all the big designer brands are making those? Why are people thinking that actually, that the economy benefited big companies for a very long time? Now is the time for new ways of doing business. The world needs solutions for social problems, for environmental problems. Why are we not getting together virtually through Zoom, through Skype, through whatever it might be, and having those conversations and saying how we could try and resolve issues, if not on a major scale? So people think in a major way. Some of us think in a small way. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is the time to transform your lives. And this is the time to transform economies and to transform how we look after the environment. We have a chance to look at, a world where, once I die, before I die, I want animals to have felt that, we were happy that Saeeda passed us in the path. She put water there. There were seeds that I put out there for the birds. There was plants that they were fed. They were there and they're growing and they make the world beautiful. So as far as I'm concerned, I want my legacy on a micro level to be a positive one for every who's ever crossed in my path.
Talk about what you want, but this year you had the opportunity, very few people have, to go to Davos and actually address some of the world leaders. Do you want to give a flavor of what kind of things you said to them? What message you deliver in the fire, completely setting on the ground, and they probably have never even heard of it. What did you say to them?
one of the things I actually was that, first of all, I'm the girl almost never had an education, and now I'm designing a who transform during, it's just so the will is there of this or not activity, and the things that I talked about is how some of that can actually happen. Some of the solutions, some of the best practice and then what I actually found is that much of the knowledge that is commercially viable, I used to be given, and people used to look at it and think, oh, it's got no, but adding a rough diamond off the ground, seeing it's in our communities, there's people are that make them a means Hula has a core activity of sad stories, and I'm not reducing any sad story. You let it over, and I can still remember. I mean, I've spoken at over 110 conferences in my life. Most of them have been in the UK, and I did one conference, and it was talking about women and glass ceilings, and about minority communities and glass ceilings. And I said, I do not believe in glass ceilings. I believe that when we're walking on a road, sometimes there's in the road where there might be you don't think, oh, well, see, me and what's going on. You just walk around it. So the moment you allow someone else's opinions, their prejudices, a system that doesn't work for you to dictate your future, you've allowed things which doesn't think of you first. It thinks of the system. The system maintains itself. My suggestion is that anybody that's got to state dreams them in front of them, and then start working towards their dreams, and realize that the obstacles are real. The challenges, they're challenges. We have them every day. Wake up in the morning, I have to go through 5 doors to get to a cup of coffee. Does that mean now I've got a glass ceiling?
How do you look at yourself? Drinking cups of coffee?
Well, when COVID-19 started, I was like a little herb, eating ice cream all the time, having coffee all the time, and I realized soon after that my clothes were getting tighter, and I was becoming quite just I was just becoming comfortable. So I did what I did before, and one of the things I've had about 20 years ago, I had an accident at the gym, and so I have a handing back problem. Every now and again, I'm not actually able to walk. So I thought, okay, I can actually feel my back is going again. So I started walking again, and I walk on average between 3 to 5 miles a day. I'm walking with my nieces and my family, so socially distanced, like we have a little bubble and we go for walks, and then the weather gets bad and everybody wants to with you. Just just keep avoiding being at home and doing nothing but working, just working. I was working to live rather than living. I was I was living to work rather than working to live. So then I started having my meetings, international meetings, in the park. So I would take food for the ducks and the birds, and I would sit there in the grass and have my meetings. And I remember that I was like, over summer on one of these meetings. It's a beautiful park. It's a historical park, and the Zoom camera was. Someone said, "Is that your garden?" I thought yes, because obviously I live in a palace. But the thing is that, you know, we're not trees. If something's making us uncomfortable, we have the ability to go out there and within the context or the constraints that we have to
So
change
before
things.
I bring up questions that people have asked, is there any final message you would like to share with the audience?
One of my biggest lessons is that, first of all, have faith. Have faith in who you are and what you want to do. The other thing is that within that context of faith, remember that every action I do, as somebody who's a believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a creator who's infinitely good, who's compassionate and kind, I use that as my benchmark. Every interaction I do, everything I do, I want to make sure that my lasting legacy is of goodness, of kindness, that I do. And I don't say, "Oh, today I've been kind." Actually, I reflect and I try to remain humble within that space. So from a point of myself, I would say, remember what you want to do, and don't let people dim your light and dim your dreams. If they've got a problem with your dreams, that's their problem. It's not your problem. And then be willing to put the effort in. If you are putting 3 or 4 hours to TV programs, to serials, to mindless things that others might be giving you, that's not educational, that's not towards your dreams, that's 3 or 4 hours a night that you are putting, that is going against you fulfilling your dreams.
Fantastic, Saeeda. Thank you very much for that. Incredibly inspirational. I'm going to ask some of the questions that people have raised who've been listening to your conversation. The first one has come from Professor Waqar Ahmed, and he's saying, apart from your parents, who were your role models growing up?
I would say that there's role models in all aspects of life. My role models are my nieces, who I look at, who've got such a beautiful energy about them, and they can't do enough for people. My role models, one of my biggest role models was Abdul Sattar Edi. And Abdul Sattar Edi was one of the best humanitarians in our current time. He was a man whose compassion went beyond the realms of so many people today. And so I look at someone like him who put compassion before judgment. And I think that that's a really important thing we need. We need to be empathetic and compassionate, try to look at where people's circumstances are and why they're doing things. And you know, and I would say the other person, I mean, I would say Mary, mother of Jesus, Maryam Muqaddasa. And the reason I would say Mary, Hazrat Maryam, is because she faced so many obstacles, and she faced so much defamation, so much, and she had this resolution and this inner peace in her, and she had absolute tawakkul or belief. And for me, we have to be grounded that, you know what, whatever people out there are saying about us does not make it true just because so many people are saying it.
So that comes up with the next question, which is, how can we translate your attitude into our community for others to benefit as well? Because you've got a very different attitude to many other people who don't have that feeling. So how can we translate your attitude to others in the community?
I would actually say, instead of my attitude, I would say others' positives attitudes as well, because it's not just mine. And I think that, first of all, it's really difficult because, you know, I used to be active on Facebook a lot, and I used to use it to mess around with, to make people laugh, to joke around. It doesn't make me less to make somebody else laugh, and it doesn't take my intelligence away. It doesn't take my platform away in life. But I would say that, you know, we've got such a culture of people at this moment in time where it's like people are down, and I get it that, you know what, we're in a difficult space, but how we respond to that difficult space is whether we're going to fly, we're going to swim, or we're going to sink. And, you know, I might be having a moan for the sake of having a moan, but actually for the next person, that could be the trigger that makes them end their life even. And we have to think about balancing things, that, okay, we are alive. We have got food on the table. Some of us haven't got food on their table, and so forth. How do we make it so we start with people? We start with people who are like-minded and want to do something, and we do it in a way where we're not taking away from each other. That, you know, someone's got the right to sit and cry if that's how they feel, but it doesn't mean that we should all say that, okay, because she's crying, let's all as a community join and start crying. And I think that, you know, I mean, there's issues, there's major issues at this moment in time and major anger, but that is a legitimate response to a grief or to trauma. The problem is if you stick in that space and you don't move on from there. And my worry for the community is that there's people who are benefiting from that trauma and will keep the communities there. So we need to shift them into space of positivity, of hope, and true opportunities. And this is where the role of good leaders come in, where they, if they can see that the community is stuck and they're struggling, they feel like they're sinking, they create the opportunities and they throw the rope and say, catch this, let's get you out of there. And then when you're out, you start finding your way and where you want to go.
So Malika's asked a really interesting question related to this. How can I become more self-confident without sounding arrogant?
Do you want to please repeat the question or the comment again?
So she's asked the question, how can she become more confident, more self-confident rather, without sounding arrogant?
First of all, how you sound is not your problem, because that's how others perceive it. And one of the realities of life is not everybody's going to like you, and they're not obliged to like you, and you're not obliged to like everybody else. So then comes the second point. You have to be true to yourself and those around you. And when you're true to yourself and others around you, that also involves self-reflection and trying to be the best of who you are. So I know I am useless at certain things, and I know that I'm useless at them. So if I try to pretend to be good at that thing, I'm not going to have the confidence in there. But there's things that I'm good at, and there's things I enjoy. And the thing is that what I'm saying, without a doubt, brings hardship. Without a doubt, you know, when you make a stand on the ground and you say, I'm not going to follow the crowd, you will actually have people who will oppose you. And one of my key points that came in my social media, I have a massive following on LinkedIn, and I used to teeter about on LinkedIn. But what happened was, on one of these nights, someone had status up, and it was these, they looked about 15 or 17, and someone had put their picture. Someone had picked their picture up, and they were actually asking for those girls, for men to procure their services in a way which is, I'm not going to say, but on LinkedIn. And it was 2 days after, Women's International Day. And in that process, there was loads of men saying, oh, that's a useful number, I'll take that. And these were young girls. So anyway, I looked at that post and I decided to go to sleep. But I couldn't fall asleep. Something inside me said, how can you sit there with all these men who are on one stand saying Happy International Women's Day, on another day they're talking about procuring services from someone who looks 15 to 17. So what I did was, I thought, Saeeda, you know, you've always played safe, and you've played safe on social media, but if you make a stand on this, you're finished. You're absolutely finished. And I thought, you know what, so be it. So I sat there, and I can still remember, sat in my pajamas, just opened my bed covers, sat there, and I started writing. And I said, How dare those of you who sit with one mouth about women's empowerment and on the other side talk about taking advantage of young, vulnerable women. I said, do we not have a moral, a professional responsibility and an ethical responsibility to those girls? I said what had to be said. And then I was absolutely petrified about what the backlash was going to be. And I went to sleep. I woke up and my social media had exploded that night. And there's massive debates going on, discussions going on, all sorts. But it transformed how I looked at things, that sometimes making a stand. And there was people who were opposing me. There were people who were in the education sector that said, oh, you're being judgmental. And others said, how dare you push her to out of the way and delegitimize her concerns for girls' safety. So the point is that if you want to be confident, or if you want to have self-confidence, you have to be prepared for people to dislike you. If your confidence is not willing to hear others' opinion, it becomes arrogance. If it's about a belief that you've had, you've worked it, you qualify it, nobody's got that right to take something away from you. If you love Doritos, you can eat as many Doritos as you want, but someone can't say, how dare you like Doritos? They wouldn't. But if you say all people of this background there's something wrong with, then actually they can challenge you on it. So it's about choosing and being ready to defend what you're saying, and also to be opposed and to be able to come up with an argument for or against it, and actually being able to back down from your position.
Okay, so there's another question. Did you ever think you'd be doing your current job when you were younger? Have you ever felt like your ethnicity got in the way of you getting your voice heard?
First of all, I don't do a job. I don't do a job. I'm an entrepreneur, and I work to create global change. And alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful because through the work I'm doing, over 56 countries will be looking at inclusivity of the 17 sustainable development goals. I've actually created 6 other Islamic sustainable development goals, which are both a challenge and an opportunity for Muslim countries to raise their game on workers' rights, on suppliers' rights, on so many other areas. So there's the 17 sustainable development goals, and then there's 6 Islamic sustainable development goals.
Do you want to just tell us what they are, if you can?
One is around workers' rights, that we as Muslims in the Islamic economy, it's supposed to be an ethically driven economy. So we have to ensure that the rights of workers are maintained, regardless of which faith background they're from, regardless of their ethnicity. The other was around suppliers' rights. So for example, and the workers' rights I use from the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that where you pay people before the sweat on their back has dried. And then the other is, for example, for the suppliers' rights. So again, paying people fairly on time. At this moment in time, I do not know how many Muslim-owned businesses or Muslim countries actually have audit processes to see how quickly they're paying suppliers. This means that small businesses, medium-sized businesses, because of cash flow, that the big businesses are withholding payments, some of those businesses will go down. We do not need to give people charity. We need to put measures in place that take them away from being in a poverty situation straight away. I'm working on, and then there's others. I have to look in my books and see which ones are. I actually have moments halfway through the night, too much coffee, too much ice cream, and I come up with these kind of, but there's a whole series of development goals that are for the Muslim world. I went to the OIC, which is the Organization of Islamic Countries. I went as an observer on behalf of Somalia, and the ambassadors. I was sat with the ambassadors who are instrumental in making change in these countries and putting resource to that. There is Muslim countries who are now looking at some of the ideas and some of the best practice from 20 years ago that I've been working on in the UK to implement it in their countries towards children's health, well-being, towards women's enterprise. So Yeah.
So mashallah, you know, often we sometimes sit there thinking, you've just done a talk, what difference has it made and whatnot. So End Khan, I don't know who she is saying, talking about taking a walk. I didn't want to miss your talk, so I'm listening to you at the gym. Your talk is making me run so much faster. Laugh out loud. So well done, you've had a direct impact. Just one other question, that is, if everything was taken away from you now and you could only keep 3 things, what would they be?
It would be faith, because faith is that candle. And you know, for some people it comes from a religious point of view, so I have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For others it's faith in themselves, or it could be faith that everything will be infinitely good. Eventually it will all be okay. And you know what, we'll all go through storms. So one is faith. The second, I mean, I cannot tell you how much I love people and animals, and I admire this world and the intricacies of it, of both the big and the small. And so it's that ability to appreciate and to recognize what we have and how we're not benefiting from it. But so it's appreciation. And I suppose the third would, I probably say the first one, faith, positivity. The third is my loved ones. And I cannot tell you how much I love my parents, my friends, the people I interact with, even the people who I don't get on with. Often I think, Saeeda, how, you know, you don't get on with this person. How would you change that person if you could get away? You know, if you could get away with changing them, how would you change him? And I come to the reflection that actually I don't want to change them. I like the way they irritate me. I like the way that they do certain things and I respond to them in a certain way. So actually, I love what I have, and I love the fact that we have an opportunity that we can truly transform our lives. And so thank you for giving me the chance.
Finish by a comment that Rosie has made, which I think is true for everybody. She's just simply said, you are amazing in capitals. Thank you very much for that. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you for an hour. I don't know if my colleagues, Sarah and if they want to ask any other final questions at the end of the hour. Professor Vakar, do you want to say anything? Or ask any final questions? Nasser, do you want to say anything? Nasser, can you hear me? No, it sounds like there's some problems at their end. So Saeeda, do you want to just finish off with any final thoughts for anybody listening to this?
My final thoughts is that we've got this life and we have this opportunity for reflection at this moment in time. Reflection that normally we wouldn't have time to spend with our families. We normally wouldn't have time to spend time to write that book or read that book or to do things. Use this time to actually start developing what you want to do in your life and your dreams. And the world is a really connected place at this moment in time. I have got amazing colleagues there. I've got colleagues here from Newcastle. I've got people in Australia. I've got people from India, from Pakistan. And this is actually just a small fraction of where people are from. And they're my friends, but they're also my support network. And similarly, there's all of us, we have access to that. So go for what matters to you. I want to build those sustainable cities, and I want to make sure that every city where I am and where my influence is, I will be bringing the people who can grow food, organic food for people, social entrepreneurs, clean energy, animal welfare, beautiful greenery. Wherever I will go, I will look at bringing the positive and the people who want to make a change. And And either we can be part of having our dreams fulfilled, or others will ask us to fulfill their dreams for them. And I think that's my...
Oh, Jazakallah khair, Saeeda. Dr. Ali, do you want to finish off finally? I think we've reached the hour. Oh, the sound is still not coming through. It looks like he's got a problem with his sound, unfortunately. Okay, well, it's come to the end of the hour. So thank you very much, Saeeda, for such an inspirational talk. You're absolutely amazing. I hope people have found that very interesting. People have asked about your Facebook account, if they can connect with you and things. So do you want to say what your Facebook account is, or we can send the message later?
You can send the message later, but you know, they're not going to probably find that much inspirational things on my Facebook, because I have moments. I just use it to have great fun with people. So if you want to have a good laugh, you'll probably find things on there. You'll have the odd talk on there, but I'm more than happy to share.
On LinkedIn,
it,
what
no
about
problem.
LinkedIn? How can people find you on LinkedIn? You mentioned you've got lots of followers there.
Just under my name, Saeeda Ahmed.
Okay, very much, everybody, and you've enjoyed this talk. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.